Hey guys, thanks for watching as always. This is the first part of a video series that we've got coming up on this channel. We're making a very realistic crankbait. We've got a trip planned to Minnesota in upcoming couple of weeks, so yeah, this will come in very handy. By the way, we're looking for a name for the series, so if it's something like timber to tuna or wood to walleye, we're making our own fishing lures out of wood, and then we're going to test them out on some fish. Or if you've got any ideas, just leave them below in the comments. So we're starting off with 2 pieces of wood. This is some leftover Polonia wood that I've been using for making stick baits. It's kind of hard to come by, but you could use any other wood as long as you weigh it properly with the internal weights. So I'm just making a little drawing and a design to know what I'm aiming for when I'm carving out the lure. You don't have to be super precise with this, just make something that you think will look cool and work well. That's the most important thing. I'm just quickly transferring it to the wood so that I can see where I have to carve, and then I'm going to connect the 2 pieces of wood with super glue. Just get some really good super glue so you make sure that these pieces of wood stick together really well. Now obviously this is where the tedious work starts. You have to carve out the shape. The best thing that I can recommend is that you carve out one dimension first, so just the outline of the bait, and then use a little bit of a stencil that you can make by just folding a piece of paper in half and then cutting it along the line so it's symmetrical, to make the thickness of the body, how wide it's going to be. That will help you really well with getting a nice symmetrical shape. Now I've obviously done that here, and this is where you just have to start sanding. I'm using 80 grit to start off, to get all the rough edges smoothed out a little bit, like right here. And then we're gonna transition into 320 grit to really get a nice smooth finish on the wood. That's looking pretty good. Now we kind of have to design the bait from here, so we're going to indicate where the hook hangers are going to be. Obviously you just want to center that really well, and it does kind of help having 2 pieces of wood stuck together, because you know you're in dead center of the bait. It is preferable to just use a solid piece of wood instead. Obviously you can determine the center of the wood from one piece with just measuring it out. Now we also wanted to determine where the swimming lip of the crankbait is going to be. I've made a quick line drawing on the nose of the bait where I want it to be. I'm just using a dremel tool to grind out the slit where the diving lip is going to be. One tip I'll have to give you is that you screw in the nose eyelet first, because if you do that after you've created the slit, there's a good chance that the piece of wood between the nose eyelet and the swimming lip is going to break off. So here we're determining where the weights are going to be. I've got a little sinker that I'll be cutting in half, so I've got 2 pieces. Keeps the bait nice and stable. Best thing for weighting crankbaits probably is just putting it in the thickest part, which is the belly obviously. That'll keep the bait nice and stable and make it swim true. So we've got the holes and we've got the sinker split in half. Now we're just gonna put those in the bait, make sure that they're in nice and tight. And what we're using is some super glue. Now do as I say, not as I do, because I bought the wrong super glue. This was actually gel. This stuff was way too thick. It's not actually good for fixing any weights in your lure. I mean, it worked, but you have to kind of work around it. The best super glue that you can buy for this is the really runny stuff, the really thin stuff that goes everywhere if you're not careful. What you can do is you put some sawdust in there, and then when you put super glue drops on there, it will actually seep in and then harden up the whole thing. It works a lot faster than that liquid wood or whatever they call it, because then you have to wait a couple of hours before it dries up. This stuff is instant. How I worked around it with the gel is that I put the gel in first and then pressed the sawdust in it, which kind of worked, and it was still very quickly, but it's better if you can put the sawdust in first so you don't have to repeat the process. I had to repeat it 2 or 3 times. Now we've sanded the weight gaps there. Now we're just drawing a face on the crankbait so we can carve it out. This is very much optional, but if you want to have a real professional, realistic looking bait, then I could recommend it. It's also very rewarding when it comes out real nice and you've got a really nice looking bait. Now after you've carved the face, make sure that you sand it properly. And then you can go on to applying some silver tape or silver foil. There is good and there's bad foil. I'm using the bad foil here because I had no idea what I was getting into. This stuff is really thick. It's got a very thick, sticky part to it, which makes it very easy to dent in, and you just get all these uneven sections into the places where you use the tape. I would say if you're looking for good tape to make scales and gills, I would say get as thin as possible. So once I determined the shape of the gills, I've started carving out the gill shape itself so it looks nice and neat. And then we transition onto the scale pattern. Now, as if this lure didn't already involve enough tedious processes, this is probably the worst one. I've doubled 2 pieces of tape together and cut out the shape of the crankbait so that we've got 2 even pieces. And then I've used a ruler or any piece straight you can use to essentially create a couple of straight lines very close to each other, and then you cross them over on the other side, which will create a scale pattern, as you can see right here. It takes a lot of time, and it's very easy to make the slightest mistake, which I have done, by the way, but you can kind of correct it and adjust to it, and a couple of mistakes isn't too bad. It still looks really good. So here we're applying the tape to the lure. Just be very, very patient with this. You can't rush it. You have to be very careful. And then when you stick the tape on, you want to start from the center. Make sure that's all in line. And then slowly get the tape to stick on the edges of the lure as well. Now you will get some wrinkling, but if you do it very slow, you can press those wrinkles out, and the tape might actually fit to the form, I guess, a little bit. There might be some pieces that you have to cut off, but if you've cut it out the right way, it should eventually sort of shape itself around the lure. We'll say it takes a fair bit of time. Now it's important to Make sure that it transitions nicely into the gills. So take your time finding the right edge where to cut. Here you see me cut the tape away from the gills so that it nicely transitions into there. It's looking very, very good. Make sure you clean up all the pieces. Then you're done. Do the same thing to the other side, obviously. Now to protect the foiling, we want to get an epoxy coat on there straight away before we do any colors. Before we add any colors to the back and to the belly of the lure, we want to make sure that it's in the epoxy. So here we've already coated in the epoxy. This is the next day. It's dried up. Still's got some hardening to do, but it's dried up. It's looking really good. And we've got the opportunity now to add some color to see what it looks like. It will need a couple more coats of epoxy and polyurethane. It will be good to go afterwards. We won't be finishing this lure quite yet, but we're getting on the way. So here you see I've painted the back black just with a Sharpie. That'll do for now. Get an idea of what it's going to look like. Very pleased with the result here. It's a bit tedious, but it works. Now we've cut out a little diving lip from plexiglas. It's very tough stuff. I think that's what most of the lure lips are made out of, if they're not molded. Now this is not a very exact lip. It's not symmetrical. It's still got a lot of rough edges, but it gives us an idea how it swims. See if it's any good. And as you can see, this thing swims fantastic. Very, very happy with the result. Nice flash on there. Perfect. Nice wide wobble. Alright, so thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to get to the next part. We'll be doing another video when it's fully finished up, and we'll also be making videos obviously when we're fishing with it here in Texas as well as in Minnesota. So stay tuned, guys.